Greetings, everyone. This is a shot of whiskey, and the baseball playoffs are upon us.
I want to throw the guy out at first base, so I pick up the ball and throw it to Hooo.
Now that's the first thing you've said right.
I don't even know what I'm talking about.
No, this video has absolutely nothing to do with baseball. I just couldn't think of any way to open up this video today. What this video is instead is I'm going to be responding to a TikTok video. However, I didn't go to TikTok to get this because I don't hate myself. However, somebody here on YouTube has gone on to TikTok and has made compilation videos. In fact, that's what his channel pretty much is TikTok compilations that kind of, in a way, relate to MGTOW and other aspects of the manosphere. Be Reset. I will leave a link in the description down below to his channel. Not to the video where this clip comes from, because that's like 2 months old and something like that. So, yeah, I'm a little long overdue for this. But so anyways, before we actually get into that guy, let's go ahead and show how it starts. It actually starts with somebody else proposing a gender-based question.
Statistical proof you can give me that women have it worse than men. And
now the response to that question comes from some fat ugly doofus whose name I don't care enough to remember. Looks like the very typical raised by a single mother who was probably abusive and a feminazi who taught him that he's a bad person because he has a peepee. At least that's kind of the impression that I get. I could be way the hell off, but I kind of doubt it. And I'm going to show you why. This is how he ended his video.
Just your friendly neighborhood feminist trying to knock down toxic masculinity, doing my best. Doing my best.
People who sing like that should be drug out into the street and shot.
Now, in case anyone is wondering, yes, I did decide to put his, conclusion at the beginning, not just because he has an Oedipus complex, I believe, but also because there's a point to why I did this. Notice he said a particular 2-word phrase that I'm sure we've all come to know and absolutely detest, which is toxic masculinity. Thank you, feminists, for coming up with some more man hate. I think it's important to think of that as we hear him go over his list of stats. Now, of course, with him being a feminist, he doesn't provide citation to any of these, so I had to look them up. And as it turns out, they all come from the same source. Well, I mean, you can find this particular list on multiple websites. I found it on 3 different ones, and they all pointed to the exact same location, which is weforum.org. So that's where I'm getting this for you guys to look at. This is where I'm putting a link to so you guys can take a look at yourself. Plus, they have 7 stats. He only gives 6. That's right. He skips one. In fact, he skips number 6. So, and I do plan on mentioning it just to show you guys that I'm being more thorough than he is. And also, I think it's kind of interesting that he skipped this one, to be entirely honest. So, let's go ahead and take a look at the first one, which is actually worth noting.
Women are 47% more likely to suffer severe injuries in car crashes because safety features are designed for men.
In their 2011 study of more than 45,000 crash victims over 11 years, meaning this started more than 20 years ago and ended 10 years ago, which means that it's probably no longer valid considering how much technology improves over the years, researchers from the University of Virginia found women drivers were much more likely to be injured in a crash than men. And just for the sake of argument, let's ignore the scientifically proven fact that women on average are worse drivers than men on average because of certain gender dynamics that a certain group of people don't seem to like to acknowledge.
What just happened here?
Okay, that was really weird.
Speaking of which, they said, well, who's they? Researchers. Well, what were their qualifications? Were they sociologists? Probably. Or something to that effect. Gender studies professors, who knows? But they said this was because car safety features had been designed for men. Now, notice how the design for men part has a that blue link feature to it. I looked at that. They actually do bring up some interesting points, and I will get to that in a little bit. Let's go ahead and continue on with what this link says. The positioning of head restraints, which can be adjusted, as well as women's shorter height, which, yeah, men on average are taller than women, but how many of us are kind of in that same middle ground? There's not a whole lot of ridiculously short women versus ridiculously tall men. So I don't really think that's relevant. Different neck strength and musculature. Well, that's because women on average are weak compared to men. So that's not exactly something that car companies can counteract. As well as their preferred seating position, meaning the women make these decisions, meant they were more susceptible to injury. So what they have listed here is stuff that's either a case of biology that car companies can never change, or things that can be adjusted by people who know what they're doing ahead of time. That link, however, does provide a little bit of insight that is actually kind of interesting, that kind of strengthens Soy Boy's argument, which is some car companies, probably not as much as they used to, like back when this survey was done, when they have their crash tests that they do, they only use male dummies, allegedly. However, I've seen video footage of cars, going through this process, even during this time period, even before that, where they have not only female crash dummies, but also children. So clearly that's wrong. Or is it? Maybe there's a small degree of truth to it. I don't know. But it is worth looking into, or at least thinking about. And the other one, sometimes, because they're women, and they have the whim, which means womb, sometimes the women are pregnant. That changes the dynamic right there. But again, what the hell are these car companies supposed to do to counter that? Not a whole lot. So, it is an interesting topic, because I will give this dork this much credit. He's got a good one here. Not like he came up with it on his own, but then again, most of us don't come up with our own stats. We have to research this stuff from people who actually know what the hell they're doing. But yeah, it's an interesting thing to at least consider. But how valid is it still? 10 years have gone by. How much has technology improved? Let's go on to number 2.
33,000 girls become child brides every day.
Globally, 12 million girls each year get married before the age of 18. Notice the blue part. Yes, it is another link. And yes, I am providing that link down in the description below as well. But also notice that it says before the age of 18. I will get to that later. Roughly 33,000 every day, or 1 every 2 seconds. That's kind of frightening. There are some 650 million women alive today who were child brides. The reasons behind it vary between communities, but it's often because girls are not valued as highly as boys, and marrying them off at a young age transfers the economic burden to another family. That part's actually kind of valid. But to say it's often because of that, they're kind of making it sound as though that's the majority of the reasons. And I would argue against that. Oftentimes, it's, you could say an economic burden, but at the same time, it's also an economic gain. It's also, we guys understand this concept. It's an investment. Like, if I want my son to get married and I'm in a culture where the dads agree on these types of things, I am making an investment for the future of my bloodline. So it's actually kind of smart to do that in those types of situations. I think doing it while they're still children and haven't even hit puberty is disgusting on so many levels, but I can also kind of understand, because some countries do it in a way that's a little bit less creepy. Like, in Japan, they would do arranged marriages. I'm basing this entirely off of an anime that I really like. To where, they could be like toddlers, and you can make that agreement. They could still be fetuses, and then you can make that agreement. But that doesn't mean they get married right then and there. The idea is that they get married when they're of legal age. Which, as I understand it in Japan, well, actually, I don't know. I don't know what the legal marriage age in Japan is. There's actually a lot of countries in which this is a very touchy subject on. In fact, let's go ahead and go to something that, let's see what this link leads to. It leads to a website called girlsnotbrides.org. It's... Take a guess what this site's about. But they have a map that I really like, and I wanted to show you guys what this looks like. See, this right here is showing places where child brides are a norm. Notice something about this top 20 chart list. Well, I mean, it's the top 16. This is a still image. But every single one of them, except for like 2, are on the African continent. I wonder why that is. Oh, but let's go ahead and expand upon that and look at the world without things blocking the view. Notice a pattern here. Actually, a few. Every single one of these is in one of 3 parts of the world. Latin America, Africa, and South Asia. With a few exceptions. They have Ukraine and Belarus on here, and it looks like they also have like Albania and Bosnia and Herzegovina. So, there's a few European countries in here, but not too many. But here's what I find to be really strange. This ties into the Japan thing, as well as the 18 point. What about 16? What about 17? I know a lot of these countries, including here in the States, have ways upon which the legal age of consent is even below 18. I remember seeing a meme, I don't know if this is actually true or not, but apparently in Bulgaria, you can bang a girl as young as 14. I've heard that in some parts of Japan, you can go as young as 12 under certain circumstances. And I know that the same thing is true about certain American states. My home state, Washington, as I understand, to be honest, it's been a while since I've looked at my home state's laws on this, but as I understand it, here in Washington, you can bang a girl as young as 16 if you meet certain requirements, which I think is stuff like you yourself have to be no older than 19, her parents have to be okay with it, stuff like that. But I would imagine some states would also allow marriage. I mean, if girls can have sex at these young ages, why can't they get married as well? As far as I'm concerned, that makes sense. If you're going to legally allow that aspect of it, why not legally allow the whole thing? Personally, I think both are stupid and both shouldn't be allowed. That's me. But why is America not on here? Why is Canada not on here? Why is Japan not on here? I mean, I'm pretty sure that a whole lot of these blank countries should not be blank, if they were being honest. But maybe that's just because of how they're calculating this stuff. I don't know. I just dropped my keyboard. But my point being is, this is a very good point. Creepy dancing man. But I wouldn't say it's a toxic masculinity thing. I think this is more of a toxic culture type of thing. And I don't care if you leftist crybabies call me a racist over it. Facts are facts. This is more of a culture thing than a man thing.
Come on, man.
Women in rural parts of Africa spend 40 billion hours a year collecting water.
Nature's beauty! Nature's beauty!
Oh, he thinks this actually proves something. That's funny. Okay, so average hours per week spent fetching wood and water in rural areas of selected sub-Saharan African countries. They only list 4. These stats are super old, with one of them being almost 20 years old. And really, when you look at some of these numbers, they're not really that special or different. I mean, take a look at Sierra Leone in the very bottom right corner. Girls and boys, it's almost the exact same thing. Same thing with Madagascar. Boys and girls, very close. In fact, they're closer than the Sierra Leone kids. Guinea, almost exactly the same. Why is this, though? Is it because they hate women? No, it's clearly not. If it were, these numbers wouldn't be anywhere near like this. It's because they're trying to fucking survive. How is this so... Oh, you know, here, how about I just go ahead and show you guys the next part. In rural parts of sub-Saharan Africa, a lack of services and infrastructure... Let me say that again. A lack of services and infrastructure. What does that mean? It means they don't have the ability to get fucking plumbing. Combined with an expectation of household duties and limited employment opportunities for women, which is a fair point to an extent. Again, go back to the idea of toxic cultures, if it's even toxic. You know, I'm sorry. What woman is going to want to work construction in sub-Saharan temperatures? Guys don't want to do that. They'd probably rather stay at home and clean a carpet. Means they shoulder an unequal burden of gathering water and wood for their families. Okay, let's say that that's true. So what? What do the guys do? Do they just sit around and hump goats? No, they're working. They're doing actual jobs. They're the ones who are going out, busting their asses off, risking failure to provide for the family. They're working for it. And let's also not forget, in a lot of these countries, there's a good chance these guys are going to get nabbed and forced to join some side of a military conflict. Let's be real about this. This isn't because women suck and should be beneath men at all time. No, it's not like that. Not by a long shot. I mean, yeah, there's probably a small degree with that, with the part where it says, with an expectation of household duties. You know, ooh, oh no, a woman's expected to cook, how horrible. But most of it is because this isn't the US we're talking about. Even our rural parts are much more developed than rural parts of sub-Saharan Africa. It's like comparing apples to pebbles. You're an idiot.
At the rate we're going, it will take 108 years to close the gender pay gap.
Why am I surrounded by fools?
The myth that would never die. It's like trying to explain to a 6-year-old that unicorns do not exist. Ugh. Except it's worse, because this type of thing is taught in academia. I am not going to say why the wage gap is not real, because we all fucking know it. But I will say this. You can see here, second paragraph begins with the 4 words across the 106 countries. Blah, 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 blah. Well, that's about half of the countries in the world. And I'm pretty sure that's more than the amount of countries that are considered part of the quote-unquote West that have adopted feminism as some sort of token of virtue or whatever, and have laws in place to say women should get paid the same amount as men. I'm pretty sure that some of the countries on there don't have such a rule. And you know what? I really don't care about those countries. My country already has them. It's not an issue here, except with the decisions that women make, because women can make these decisions. It's called freedom.
How dare you make me take responsibility for my own actions?
Blaming the victim.
Yeah,
I'm having you take responsibility for your own actions. That's what I'm saying.
As of right now, only 6 countries give women equal legal work rights as men.
Shut up, Wesley.
I know, it sounds hard to believe, right? Oh, wait, there's a reason. Because it's BS. The World Bank's recent Women, Business, and the Law report measured gender discrimination in 187 questions. I have not looked at this report because I don't really give a crap. And part of that is because of what it says here. It found that only Belgium, Denmark, France, Latvia, Luxembourg, and Sweden scored full marks on 8 indicators, from receiving a pension to freedom of movement, influencing economic decisions women make during their careers. So because certain jobs have certain benefits and certain jobs have certain flexibility issues, apparently legally we can persecute women or some nonsense like that. It doesn't work that way, fat ass. And these groups, which are just trying to pander to this false narrative, are obviously going to word it this way. This is ridiculous. I qualify for a pension, not because I have a peepee, but because it's negotiated in my contract. You know what I do for a living, fatso? I clean toilets. There's a lot of occupations out there that offer some type of a pension. Freedom of movement. If that's an issue, maybe the women should make better career decisions. Think of that. Not a legal issue. It's completely a woman issue. Oh, wait. That's right. You can't think of that because you're a feminist. Now, as I said earlier, this list that the guy is using does have a number 6 that he skipped. I'm not entirely sure why. I have a theory, and I'll say what that theory is. 22% of AI professionals are women, and it could be down to lack of confidence. Or it could be down to a lack of interest, because we are talking about women after all. And it is a fact, whether these feminists like to admit it or not, is a fact that women, girls, females, their brains tend to favor interacting with people more. This is why even girl monkeys prefer playing with dolls over trucks. Whereas with men, boys, males prefer things. Again, this is why boy monkeys prefer to play with trucks over dolls. We like things, including techno doodads. And that's exactly what AI is. So this whole confidence thing is ridiculous. And this... somehow they calculated a chart of child confidence. How the hell does that even work? Now, I think this guy skipped it because of the second part of this title. And it could be down to a lack of confidence. I think he realized that if he said that, he would sound like an idiot. But apparently he doesn't understand that with the other things. Well, some of the other things. Like I said earlier, some of these do make a degree of sense to at least talk about. But, yeah, this is just silly. Let's go ahead and move on to the last point that he brings up that is on the list. And brace yourselves.
And for every female film character, there are 2.24 more men.
Okay, I had to do this recording like 7 times because I could not get past this blue part right here. Let's see if this one works. The Gina Davis Institute analyzed... Nope. 120 theatrical releases between 2010 and 2013 in 10 countries, and found that of the 5,799 speaking or named characters, less than a third were female and more than a third were male. Okay. I did not click on that link because I really don't care. I'm looking at these numbers and thinking, I don't care. And, oh yes, there's the topic of this is film. I really don't care. I don't see why anybody thinks this topic matters. But you know what? I said I was going to get into this, so here we go. So, 120 in a 4-year time period. I'm sure that even the dumbest of us could be able to figure out that that's 30 movies per year. Now, to break it down all the more, this would mean that there would be a new movie coming out in theaters every 12 days. And you know what? I'm pretty sure that with just American-made Hollywood films, it was more than that. Pretty sure. But, oh yeah, there's also 9 other countries. Now, I'm sure that the report says what those 9 other countries are. Don't really care enough to look into it, but sure, we'll go ahead and go with this. I think I have just proven, just by that they were intentionally selecting specific movies to help fabricate these numbers. Well, not so much fabricate these numbers, but to choose the numbers that they like the most, that they think will make their argument sound better. 5,799 speaking or named characters. So that could be somebody who's in the background, who, like, maybe a cop who's just like, put your hands up, and then they get killed by the bad guy. Well, that would be a speaking role. But then again, the same thing could be said of a waitress who's like, what can I get for you, hun? And that'll be it. But anyways, point being, 5,799 out of 120 films. Now, assuming that none of these movies are like sequels, like, I'm not even going to bother doing an example because I don't care. Assuming that none of these are repeat characters, this would be an average of 48.325 characters per film. Using the percentages that they provide, this would mean that 14.932425, yes, I went that far, are women. Now, if we round both of these numbers up, just to make things simple, that would be 15 out of 49, which means that the remaining 34 are men. Okay, a little bit of a slight imbalance there, but who cares? Why does this matter? I mean, honestly, out of all of the different, male versus female stats that are out there, this is probably the most insipid that there is. Who cares? Why does this matter? And I bet this fat dumbass couldn't say anything other than because it does. It's American opportunity. The mommy wants more ladies because the women are better than men. Or something. I mean, the only other thing that would make sense to me is, since he's a feminist, that means he lives in a state of delusion. And so, seeing delusional, fictional worlds, he probably associates with them because, well, they're fantasies. There's no truth to them, just like most feminist arguments. So I would like to point out, as my conclusion, that obviously women do have their own struggles, even here in the United States. I am not denying that this is a thing. I am denying, however, that it's as bad as these brain-dead feminists would like to think, because they're not capable of thinking. And there's a lot of aspects to being a man that suck. Case in point, let's go over this list of stuff provided on the Daily Wire that they got from Real Sexism, thanks to Gavin McInnes. I'm only going to read some of these, but I'll post them all up for you guys. Men pay 97% of alimony. Men make up 94% of work suicides and 93% of work fatalities. 77% of homicide victims are men. Men are over twice as victimized by strangers as women. Men are 165% more likely to be convicted than women. Men get 63% longer sentences than women for the same crime. Males are discriminated against in school and universities. 60 to 80% of the homeless are men. Women's cancers receive 15 times more funding than men's. At least 10% of fathers are victims of paternity fraud, and 1/3 of all fathers in the USA have lost custody of children. Most are expected to pay for this. Yeah, but we have it so great, don't we? Now, there's a similar list that I found from thoughtcatalog.com. This is more of just people noticing double standards and stuff. In fact, here's number 5, the double standard of abuse. Women are more likely to get away with it with fewer repercussions. I remember the Jeremy Kyle episode where he had to shame the audience because they were laughing at a guy's domestic abuse story by a woman. Now, for those of you guys who don't know who Jeremy Kyle is, he's a UK talk show host, kind of like Sally Jesse Raphael, or to be a little bit more modern, Maury, Steve Wilkos, that kind of a thing. And I remember that episode as well, too. I mean, the crowd was actually like, oh, that's funny. He got his ass kicked by his girlfriend. Bitches. Number 8, having to shoulder the entire financial weight of their families. I feel bad for guys that have to shoulder the entire financial weight of their families, like my husband, meaning this is being put up here by a woman, by the way. Since we have small kids, we agreed I'd stop working for a while. Although he earns good money and I'm pretty good at managing a budget, I do feel bad for him as he's entirely responsible for keeping our family afloat. Moving on. Number 14, penis size / sexual performance, which I would say body shaming falls under this category. It's totally fine to make fun of a guy for having a small dick. It seems men are under so much more pressure than women to perform well in bed. We expect them to use their hands, mouths, and dicks just right and be great at it every time, or they aren't manly. Also, I can't imagine the pressure and anxiety regarding penis size. I mean, as long as a woman has a wet hole, he's probably going to like it. Most vaginas are pretty similar and aren't judged that harshly. But for men, so much hinges on what they were born with between their legs. And 19. I'm actually going to read this whole thing. In my country, if a man is the victim of an abusive relationship, he is in a world of hell. If a domestic dispute ends in a police intervention, men are always either taken into custody or asked to leave the scene. This is the protocol whether or not the man is the perpetrator or victim. If a man tries to reach out about being in an abusive relationship, he is often not taken seriously. Male rape victims are virtually laughed at by police, while lady rapists get away with lighter sentences. If a man tries to divorce his abusive wife, she will almost always get custody of the children, even if evidence of violent behavior is provided in court. Also, my country has no male-only domestic abuse shelters. I live in the U.S. Oh, and here's another one, something that's based off of something a little more recent. Thanks to the National Library of Medicine, why men are more vulnerable to COVID-19 than women. That's right. According to science, you know, the thing that you leftists seem to like to think that you guys are the masters of, according to science, we guys are much more vulnerable to the effects of COVID than you women. Not to say women can't suffer from it, just that we're more vulnerable to it, meaning it's more likely to affect us. There's also an AARP article that I found that talks a little bit more about why this is, and you can see in their subhead title, Biology and Behavior could explain why more men are dying from the coronavirus. So, there you go. Yes, you ladies, you know, your life is not all peaches and roses, but you know what? We've got it pretty damn bad too. And I would even argue that at the very least here in the United States, it is worse for us, despite this dancing doofus here. Well, thank you all for watching. I'm going to go ahead and end this. Peace out, and remember, if you abuse alcohol, it will abuse you back.